Up, what's happening? Welcome back into another edition of Fast Five Sports. We got the whole crew with us today. I'm Matt Infield. That is Griffin Deberay. Over there, we've got Digital King, the executive producer of our show, and stat boy Jacob Gallant. Gentlemen, happy Friday. Happy soggy Friday, but still happy Friday to you both. How we doing?
We're doing all right. Yeah, rain's going to be a bit of a damper once again tonight for Friday football, but yeah.
Bro, I've been doing this. This is my 6th year covering high school football and local television. Every couple of years, you just have a year where you just get terrible luck on Fridays when it comes to the weather. We're in one of those years right now because, I mean, it's rained, I think, at least 4 out of the 6 Fridays, and 2 of them have been remnants of a hurricane. Well, that's a first. Yeah. I have not had that in my time in local television. But, you know, man, if the games are going to be played, we're going to be there with rain gear on our cameras and all. So
you tell me you didn't get a lot of hurricanes in Wisconsin?
No, we got plenty of snow games. Hey, and that's trust me, I'd rather be shooting in rain than snow. I'll tell you that much. I will tell you that much.
Snow does sound more fun now.
I'm not gonna complain too much because there are worse things to do. There are worse things to do in the rain than shoot football. But we got a stacked list of games for you tonight for Friday Football Fever. Jacob, do we have a list of all the games?
Sir.
We do.
Sure.
We do. All right, our game of the week, which we will talk more about in just a second. Kind of towns border each other. Really old rivalry around the area. 5-0 Collierville on the road to take on 3-2 Germantown. That is our game of the week. I will be there tonight. Stay in that same region. We have got the 1-4 Cordova Wolves traveling to Whitehaven to take on the 4-1 Tigers coming off. Griffin, you were there. Big time win on the road at Houston last Friday. Kind of legitimized themselves. A bit of a younger team, but big time win for the Tigers. Down in DeSoto County, we have it all. DeSoto County matchup between Olive Branch making the trip to South Haven to take on the 3-1 DeSoto Central Jaguars. Over at MUS, the Owls are playing host to 5-0 Ensworth. That's going to be a tough test for them. I said this could be a really good game. Southwind versus Melrose. A lot of weeks could be our game of the week. The Jaguars 4-1 with star quarterback Kelvin Perkins leading the way. Melrose City at 3-2 in the season, but they now have their full complement of playmakers back in action. Jabari Morrow, Ryan Brown. So I think that's going to be a really fun game as well. And last but not least, we have a district matchup at Hamilton High School. 4-1 Hamilton playing host to 2-3 Bolton. So that's the list of games this week. But like I mentioned, you're new here. You get it, though. Collierville, Germantown. We talked a lot about Germantown, Houston a couple weeks ago because they're both in the same town. But Houston's a bit of a newer high school. Germantown, Collierville goes back a long, long time. Obviously, the two towns right next to each other. So this is a rivalry with a lot of history to it. I jumped over to both high schools yesterday, talked with both head coaches, including Collierville head coach Joe Riccone, who played at the University of Memphis, but is from Collierville, played high school football at Collierville, and both him and Germantown head coach Sheed Robinson just talked about what this rivalry means and the buzz going into this game. Let's check it out.
I'm from Collierville. I played in Collierville, and before Houston became a school, Germantown was the rival, and it still is. And so we're taking it that way, and this is one of those weeks that you kind of wish you played a game on Tuesday or Wednesday. We need the extra days of preparation, and glad we have it. But it's like, man, let's fast forward and get to this game.
Man, anytime Germantown and Collierville get together, man, it's going to be a big one. You know what I mean? So the rival is not only the schools, the rival are the communities as well. The town of Germantown and the town of Collierville. So it's going to be a special, man, event tomorrow, man. And I'm sure they're going to come out and our fans are going to come out. So it's going to make a worthwhile experience.
Joe Riccone over at Collierville, he also told me that they are treating this game very much like a playoff game because when you look at Region 8 6A, there are 8 teams in that league. Only 4 of them are going to make the playoffs. And in my estimation, at the very least, you have 5 playoff caliber teams. Collierville, Germantown, Houston, Whitehaven we just talked about, and Bartlett as well. To the Arlingtons and the Cordovas, we'll see if they can bounce back the rest of the season. But a really good team is going to be left out of the playoff mix. So winning games against teams that are in that mix is going to be really important. So that's our game of the week. Really excited for that. Where are you going? Where's your game?
I'm at Cordova Whitehaven.
Man, your Whitehaven's good luck charm.
Yeah, I am Whitehaven's good luck charm, man. I love what Whitehaven's been doing. You went a couple weeks ago when they played White Station. It was all about the ground game.
Chris Talley went crazy.
It was so interesting because flip the script against Houston. They couldn't run the ball at all. They were throwing it all around the yard, play action like crazy. And the defense came out of nowhere, shutting down that
like
Houston
5
offense.
turnovers, right?
And that Houston offense had been putting up points on everyone all year long. So it's going to be really interesting. One guy, Terrence Whitley, slot receiver, number 10 on Whitehaven. Dude can play. Against Houston, he was blowing by everyone. Dude can flat out play. It's going to be really interesting tonight. I think It's going to go back to the ground again with the downpouring rain.
Yeah,
so
yeah. It should.
Expect the heavy dose Christopher Talley tonight.
I think the really fun thing, if you follow Whitehaven or if you're a fan of Whitehaven football, I talked to Rodney Salisbury, their head coach, a couple weeks ago. Last year, they barely missed the playoffs. They were super, super young last year. Tons of freshman and sophomore play. They're still young this year, but now a little more experience, a lot of guys who have played a lot of football. We'll see what they can do this year because obviously they're right in that playoff mix. And beating Houston, I would expect them to make it. Next year could be a lot of fun for Whitehaven because they're going to have a big group of seniors that have a ton of experience and have been a part of winning football at that point. So, like I said, it's kind of that fun year where it's like we're building something. We're good now. Next year could be a lot of fun for them. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. So that is Friday Football Fever tonight, rain or shine. And today, like it has been many Fridays, unfortunately it is rain. But I'll have a live preview at Germantown High School at 6. Friday Football Fever coming up tonight at 10. You won't want to miss it because we have a great menu of games on tap. All right, let's switch gears to the hardwood now. It has been a busy week for the Memphis Grizzlies. Unfortunately, got a little bit busier this morning. Not news we want to hear. Vince Williams Jr., so he was in training recently, felt some pain in his shin, and now it has been diagnosed as a stress reaction in his left tibia. I think I got the diagnosis correct. He will be reevaluated in 4 weeks, full recovery expected. So do the math. You don't have to do too much math here. 4 weeks from now, the season will have started. So if all goes well, you'll probably have him back for the second week of the season. So it's not the end of the world, but it's like, man, you thought this team could not have any worse injury luck after everything they went through last season. And the cruel irony of it is now we're going to this season, and the two breakout guys from last year, the two real bright spots, Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams Jr., have now been hurt before the season even starts, and both will miss the start of the regular season. So I don't know what the Grizzlies did to make the basketball gods angry, but clearly they got to change their mojo or something, because we can't have another season like we did last year when it comes to the injuries.
No.
I think that's what everyone is concerned about right now is reliving another season like last year. I mean, Vince Williams really came on last year.
Very good player.
He ended up starting 33 games last year because of all the injuries. I don't think going into the season people had a lot of expectations for him as a second-round pick, but he really showed up.
Yeah.
And 10 points a game, 37 from 3.
Yeah.
37% from 3. That's
Most likely was going to be a guy,
big
if
impact.
not starting this year, 6-man off the bench, most likely. So
At the very least, just playing a key role, and I think he will eventually too. But yeah, Vince is, when you look at that 2022 draft class, it's not great for the Grizzlies right now. That was Roddy, Laravia, Kenny Chandler. Vince Williams Jr. is the prize of that draft class right now. And I think Vince is the perfect – I think Vince can play on any team because he does basically everything, doesn't command the ball a ton, but like you said, really improved his three-point shooting last year, which is, I think, really what kept him on the floor because we knew he could defend. He's just got kind of this long, lanky body that you could put him on probably 1 through 4, and he's a dog defensively. Like, I don't know if you ever talk to Vince in the locker room, like, he's this quiet, unassuming guy, but man, he is a pest. Kind of reminds you of a guy we're going to talk about in a second that used to play a lot of really good defense for the Grizzlies. But, yeah, man, I remember, like, Vince going at Luka last year, Steph Curry. Vince be talking that trash on the court. Like, I promise you, he's not afraid of anyone. But, a little bit of ball handling as well, good shooter, good defender. So, yeah, Vince is going to play a key role in this team off the bench this year. It's unfortunate we're not going to see it opening night, but hopefully not too long after that.
He's such a big piece. Every team is looking for that 3-and-D guy, especially come playoff time. Guys that you can always play on the floor because they're not particularly weak on either side of it. So, yeah, we're going to need him back soon because the Grizzlies are definitely going to need him, especially with Gigi out.
Yeah.
He was probably the first guy off
that's
the
what I
bench
was going to say.
without
Start of the
Gigi.
season, it's going to be real interesting who plays that 3 stretch 4 type of role without Vince and Gigi. You could probably see.
It's probably Jitty.
Yeah.
It's probably John Conchar.
Yeah.
Which, listen.
My boy John Conchar, get more minutes.
Let me say this about Conchar. I'm not saying Conchar is someone that should be the 7th man or the second or third guy off the bench like he was a couple of years ago. Conchar is a serviceable NBA wing. He's not. I'm not saying John Conchar is going to come in and light the world on fire. He's not as good as Gigi. He's not as good as Vince. But if you got to play John Conchar more extended minutes for a couple weeks, they'll be fine.
John Conchar got a pretty sweet highlight tape, though.
He can jump.
Look it up. He's got some highlights.
No, Anthony Davis
The mixtape king.
a couple of years ago. They'll be all right. But for them to reach their ceiling, they're going to need Gigi and Vince to contribute for sure. So at Gigi, I think we're looking at probably a December return is what it looks like now. But it must be said, this franchise, and I can't really blame them after the last couple of years, is notoriously cautious when it comes to injuries. So could be longer than that. TBD. Vince, Gigi, need them back for the long haul. And let's be honest, as long as, in the regular season especially, as long as the star power is there, Ja, Jaren, Dez, they're going to win a lot of games.
They'll survive.
They've been when those guys have been healthy, they've been a regular season wins machine the last couple of years.
And in today's NBA, just got to get in.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And the important
And
difference,
avoid the play-in, but yeah.
The important difference, Gigi needed surgery on his injury. No such deal for Vince.
Yeah, probably just rest, I imagine.
Medical game, too.
It's just, right? Good call on that.
So you want to talk about the most disappointing news of the week for sports fans of our age.
Yeah.
Derrick Rose, former MVP, former Memphis Tiger, former Memphis Grizzly for a bit of time last year. He's hanging it up.
Yep.
I think people around our age, maybe a little older than you, Griffin, sorry, but
Me and you were on the same page, though.
The memory of Derrick Rose, that MVP season was so special.
Yeah.
And he tears his ACL right after it. He's really never the same.
No, because he suffered a knee injury right after that. I mean, people forget he got hurt in the playoffs in 2012 and then missed all of the following season, 12-13, and then suffered another knee injury and played 10 games in 2 years, which is tough. And you're right, he was never quite the same after that. I'll say it's kind of, especially in this city, it's kind of cruel that now I think two of the biggest what-ifs in basketball history were both point guards for University of Memphis, and Derrick Rose and Petty Hardaway. You think about guys like Grant Hill's probably up there. Tracy McGrady is someone else I was going to say, but certainly two of the guys highest on that list were both Tiger point guards. I'll say for me, even before the 2011 MVP season, growing up in the Northeast, pro sports really dominate. You could speak to this. Pro sports over college, and then when you come to the South, college kind of evens out a little bit. But for me, I think really the first couple of teams that really stand out to me watching college basketball is probably UConn 04, UNC 05, and then the 08 Memphis team. Like I remember that very clearly, and how dynamite Derrick Rose was, and how that was just a must-watch TV team. Shout out to a couple other guys from that team too. Chris Douglas Roberts, my guy Joey Dorsey as well. But Derrick Rose made an imprint right away, and he just looked like a star in college, and he proved to be that. And winning, he's the youngest MVP in the history of the league, and I think really he came in the same draft class as Russell Westbrook, and I think he really kind of paved the way for this new generation of hyper-athletic point guards. Think about guys like John Wall, and it's kind of ultimately led to Ja Morant as kind of like maybe the next peak of that. So I kind of wanted to see those two together more because obviously Ja was hurt so much last year, but you just see the respect that Derrick Rose had from the entire basketball community when he announced his retirement, and it speaks to the impact he had on the game. I'll say he was a pleasure to cover last year, man. Just such I've talked to guys like Jarvis Greer, and others that covered him when he first got to Memphis, and they talked about how quiet he was. He wasn't that talkative with the media. Man, you talked to him last year, and he's just so thoughtful and introspective, and you could tell his journey has taught him a lot of life lessons that he's now willing to open up and share with others. So, yeah, man, I loved covering him. I'm glad he got to go out relatively on his own terms, and he made a huge impact for sure.
Do you guys have a favorite Derrick Rose memory?
I do, actually. So there's a clip on YouTube. Just type in Derrick Rose 3 dunks versus Heat, and it's a playoff game in that playoff series in 2011 against the Heat where in a 5-minute span he just ripped off 3 nasty dunks, and the last of them was he went right, left, crossover on the wing, and he threw it down on, who was the Heat center? It wasn't Bosch. It was Joel Anthony. Just threw it down on his head.
Right there.
And you hear Reggie Miller and Steve Kerr actually were on the broadcast, and you hear them just kind of losing their minds because of how dynamite and special it was. So, and then I would say the 50-point game when he was with the Timberwolves as well.
I'm glad you brought it up because this game was so special. You could really tell that he had been down for many years. This is well after the ACL injury. To put up 50 points, and you could really tell his teammates were rooting for him so hard. He was really beloved by that team. I got the numbers from that game. It was 50 points, 19 of 31 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3, 8 of 11 from the line, 6 assists. That's classic D Rose.
Yeah.
And doing that in 2018, 6 years after his MVP season, it was really special.
Yeah, and after
to
everything
watch.
he'd been through by that point, he had been on multiple different teams, kind of shuffled around. It seemed like it was the end of Derrick Rose a little bit by that point, and then he just puts the genie back in the bottle and goes crazy for 50.
And though he obviously didn't live up to that MVP caliber, he had a good season that year as well.
Yeah.
I think he averaged about 18 points. He was a good player off the bench for that team.
I think he deserves. That's something I was going to hit on. I think he deserves a lot of credit. I think that some of the toughest players to see their games age gracefully are the ones that are hyper athletic and dependent on that. And you grow up, and that gets you when you're so much more athletic than everyone else. Someone like a Derrick Rose, kind of see it now with Russell Westbrook in a way. It's tough when you start losing that to adapt your game gracefully and still make an impact. He, after all the knee injuries, did that. I mean, he could still. He wasn't dunking on dudes anymore, but he could get to the rim at will. Really good mid-range jumper. Like another guy that comes to mind in that regard is Vince Carter. Obviously, Vince Carter is a much bigger player than Derrick Rose, but I think that you deserve a lot of credit because that is not an easy evolution for a guy of that mold.
And later in his career, he actually became a really good three-point shooter, something he didn't do in Chicago. His MVP year, he averaged 33% from three. In Minnesota in 18-19, he averaged 37. He got up to over 40% later on. So he actually became a really good three-point shooter.
We forgot one Derrick Rose memory.
Which helped save the body.
The game winner. The game winner gets the Cavs in the playoffs with them.
The no reaction.
That's a classic.
That's a classic.
Very memeable. So yeah, once again, man, just really a pleasure to cover Derrick Rose. It is kind of cool that his basketball career ends in the same place where he took the world by storm in Memphis, started a Tiger, ends at the Grizzlies. So I think he said that. And I ain't saying you're going to see Derrick Rose around town, but I think he said he wants to stay in the Memphis area because I know I think he's got a kid at Lausanne. So yeah, maybe he'll catch him around town. Who knows?
Maybe at a Tigers game.
Maybe at a Tigers game. I do really hope that the program and they have acknowledged him more over the last year. And as we get further away from 2008, obviously the violations that is what it is. But there's no deny he is an integral figure in that program's history and kind of the ambiance and the aura around the program. So I hope they could acknowledge him at some point soon. That would be cool. Hey, speaking of, we just mentioned, Vince Williams Jr. pest defensively, a dog on that end of the floor. Kind of reminds us of another guy that used to play first team all defense in a Grizzlies uniform, man. Shout out Tony Allen. He will be the next member of the core four to have his jersey retired in the rafters at FedEx Forum. That is going to be next March 15th against the Miami Heat, I believe. He'll be the third player in franchise history to have his jersey number retired, joining Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol, obviously last year. The fourth,
I'm guessing there's one right behind him.
Mike Conley and the Timberwolves, I don't think it's coincidence, are off that night.
Yep.
Mike made the trip to Marc Gasol's jersey retirement this last year. He literally flew in on a Saturday. They had practice. He flew into Memphis, was at the jersey retirement, and they had a really important game in Phoenix. He went L.A. to Memphis, and they had a really important game against the Suns on Sunday night, and he flew back for that. So I am guessing he will make this work as well. But take two on this. Obviously, take one didn't go all that well for reasons that are now taken care of on TA's part. But yeah, obviously, and I saw a tweet the other day that people born in 2006 or later are going to pull up his basketball reference page and his stats or whatever and say he didn't deserve this. You didn't watch. You are not.
Tony Allen is the quintessential you had to be their guy.
Yeah.
Like embodied.
His numbers do not tell the story.
The heart and soul of that era of Grizzlies basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Can I fire off my hot take on Tony Allen?
Sure.
Yes.
If he does not get hurt in the 2015 playoffs, the Grizzlies beat the Warriors that year. 100%. Here's my evidence to back it up. So the Warriors took game 1, right? Grizzlies took game 2, held the Warriors to 90 points. Steph was 2 of 11 from 3. All right? Game 3, same thing. Warriors score 89. Steph shoots 2 of 10 from 3. Game 4, TA gets hurt. He only plays 15 minutes. Steph shoots 50% of the field. Warriors win. Warriors win game 5. TA sits out. Game 6, he tries to play, only gets 5 minutes. Steph shoots 8 of 13 from 3. That's not coincidental.
Yeah.
That's correlation.
The only pushback I'll give on that is, if I remember correctly, even with him getting hurt, a big adjustment in that series was Steve Kerr essentially put Andrew Bogut on Tony Allen, which meant that he was just leaving him alone in the corner, said shoot as many threes as you want. Bogut, you can play center field against, obviously, Zebo and Gasol. So that was a pretty key adjustment. But so I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I think there's more to it than, well, if you got hurt. But I can respect the take. I don't think it's solely off base.
And Tony Allen's one of those guys who I'm not sure if he lives around here, but he's always around. He's always coming to different events. He's always hosting different events. I've covered different events where he's hosting them on Beale Street, things like that. So he's just a guy who
came back with the Big 3 last year.
Yeah.
Oh, TA's around.
Yeah, he's always just been still with the organization and just trying to do what he can. So definitely one guy who 100% deserves the recognition.
Yeah, no, like I said, if you're pushing back, imagine like, is a Tony Allen like don't come at me for this. Just make it a comparison in terms of symbolism. It's like a Tony Allen, like Draymond Green comparison, like in a way.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense. Where like the numbers don't tell the story, but the defensive grit and the heart and soul of the team.
Yeah.
Minus the kicking people.
Yeah, again, don't cut me. I know Draymond might be the most hated man in Memphis. I understand that. I'm not saying.
In terms of impact, yeah.
Yes, yeah. In terms of like what they meant to like their organization, their team. I think that there's
and role on the team.
There are some similarities there. Where like if you told me that like Draymond doesn't deserve to have his number retired by the Warriors one day, I'd say you're an idiot. And same thing with Tony Allen. If you say he doesn't deserve his number retired and to be immortalized in Grizzlies franchise history, I probably think you're an idiot. But that's it. Okay, shout out to TA. Number 9 going to the rafters next March at FedEx Forum. All right, real quick, let's hit on this, and then I'll segue to a different conversation. Big deal for AutoZone Park. I don't know if you have the article up, but they have $5 million in renovations on the way, which is something that they've been saying they needed for a while.
They've been gunning for that for a minute now.
Yeah. And just now, listen, man. I've been to other minor league ballparks. AutoZone Park ain't that bad, but you talk to Craig Unger and other people that work there. They're like, there's little things behind the scenes, things you don't see, plumbing and whatnot that could use some work. And it's a cool thing to show off downtown. So I think that you want that stadium looking as good as possible and as good a shape as possible. And then hopefully, there we go. There's the article right there. And also, of course, in theory, 901FC is supposed to have their own stadium at some point soon. I don't think it's going to happen, so I think they're also going to be here. So when you've got two teams that people do care about in the city playing in this park, I think you want it to look as good as possible.
Yeah, I think this honestly might show the hand a little bit that the 901FC stadium is a lot more in the distance than we think.
Yeah.
Because I think this upgrade is essentially for both teams who call that place home to have those changes for the foreseeable future. I would say you're most likely not getting a 901FC stadium for the next 5-ish years. Somewhere around there would be my guesstimate timeline from doing a couple stories on that. So this is definitely an upgrade saying, hey, both these teams are going to be here for the next 5 to 10 years. We got to do something about this to just, again, it's just slight upgrades.
Yeah.
It's bathrooms, it's concessions.
Instead of LED lights.
Lights, things like that. It's just minor things, but that can go a long way towards helping the presentation of maybe people passing through town and things like that.
I mean, if you're driving through town, if you're driving through downtown randomly, you're probably a lot more likely to pass AutoZone Park than you are FedEx Forum. Just give it AutoZone Park's right in the middle of Union Avenue, and FedEx Forum is on MLK and Beale.
It's big for the city to keep the team around.
Yeah.
Unlike another city that you want to talk about that.
What a good transition.
That's a great transition.
I'm working on it. Man. So you want to watch this clip real quick?
Sure, let's do it. The last game at the Oakland Coliseum for the A's. The last game, probably that Coliseum, period, I imagine, unless something...
No, they got like a soccer team that plays there.
Do
Because
they?
after
Okay.
the people were ripping out the chairs, the soccer team tweeted and said, hey, we need those.
Okay.
So, got a good laugh.
Oakland Roots, yeah, because they're in the Western, or they play in USL with Memphis 901FC. So, yeah, that's tough, man. I feel really bad for just the sports fans in Oakland in general. They've lost in under 10 years. They have lost now the A's, the Raiders, and the Warriors. And now have a USL team, and that's it. And It's just, listen, other people have said it, but I don't care. I'll repeat it as well. This is nothing but greed on behalf of A's owner John Fisher. He does not, frankly, give a damn about the fan base there. He wrote this tone-deaf letter about they tried. You didn't try it all, man.
Yeah.
You wanted to get to Vegas as fast as possible.
Did
you
you see
did
the
not try
clip
it all.
of the news anchor in the Bay Area
Yes.
Yeah.
responding to that?
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done.
Yes.
From what I understand, he was kind of operating in bad faith trying to get a new stadium
Well,
around
and
there.
the whole weird part of it, I think, is very confusing. That I think people may not realize is they don't have a home in Vegas right now. There
Nope.
are no actual plans in place. So they're going to go to Sacramento for 3 years. And call me crazy, I think there's a realistic shot that they end up right back where they started. Just call me
It would
crazy.
be
I think
that
there's a
would
world
be
because
crazy.
there are no plans in place for that. And that stuff doesn't just happen. You can't just say, oh, you know what? Yeah, we're going to build this. And if I know Vegas, we're going to build this enormous stadium that's going to be the greatest baseball facility you've ever seen. That's not just going to happen overnight. That's an enormous project to undertake. And it sounds like this owner doesn't really have it all together, per se.
From what I
So-
understand, the stadium in Sacramento where they're going to play the next 3 years is like not close to MLB level.
Yeah, it's a
Like,
minor league stadium.
probably worse than AutoZone
Yeah,
Park.
it's going to be like AutoZone Park.
It's a minor league park. Yeah.
If they don't have $5 million worth of upgrades.
I think the only way they could ever go back to Oakland is if John Fisher is no longer the owner. I think that.
Well, if this falls apart,
Maybe he's
he
forced
probably
to-
won't be.
I'll tell you, I've got a kid that I interned with when I interned with the Tampa Bay Rays back in 2018. He's from Northern California. This dude was the most die-hard Oakland A's fan you could imagine. Jerseys, followed the team, everything. Like, enormous fan. He's a huge A's and Sacramento Kings fan. The minute that it was announced that they were leaving, he went on Facebook, said, I'm basically selling, auctioning off all my A's gear. Like, I am no longer affiliating my fandom with that franchise. And I'm telling you, that has nothing to do with the players. That has nothing to do with the city. That is entirely to do with John Fisher, the owner. So, yeah, man, he's tone deaf. He doesn't care about Oakland. It's a shame what he did there because, for us growing up, again, probably a little more our age than your age, but, like when I first started watching baseball, man, the A's were a powerhouse, dude. The big three, the original big three, Tim Hudson, Mark Mulder, Barry Zito in that rotation. They were nasty. And then you think about guys like Miguel Tejada, Eric Chavez, Jermaine Dye, shout out Jermaine Dye, that lineup as well. I mean, they were a good team. And even over the last, let's say, 15 years, when they had like the Olsen, Chapman days and whatnot, they were a good team. And now
And they always filled that Coliseum, even though everyone kind of knew that it was substandard. They always packed that place. It was always really loud. I remember the Jeter game with the flip. That crowd
Yeah.
was incredible there.
I went to a game there probably close to 20 years ago now. It was a cooler experience. My dad got us tickets on the right field line where like we had dinner they had a restaurant like behind a glass casing, and then we went to our seats from there. So that was cool. That was cool. But yeah, it's just I have zero doubt that the fan base there is incredibly passionate and they support the A's. Actually, I talked with when I interviewed Brent Rooker, who's their best player now, obviously from Germantown. I talked with him probably a month ago was when I interviewed him, and I was like, "What's it like, just kind of dealing with all that?" And he said the fans that show up are awesome, and they can't control the fact that not many are showing up because he didn't say this, but I mean it was a protest against basically ownership.
Yeah.
That's all it was. So
And they all showed up, as we saw, for the last game.
Definitely
Yeah.
special to see there.
yeah, I hope their Vegas fan plan fails miserably. John Fisher sells the team, and they end up back at Oakland because that's where they belong. But that's
That'd
it.
be incredible.
All right, stand on business. What do we have here?
All right, so you want to debut a new segment called Stand on Business?
Let's do it.
You want to stand on business? All right. We are going to talk about the World Series.
Okay. We're in the final weekend of the regular season.
We're going to give our picks for the World Series, and then we'll revisit at a later time and see how wrong we were.
All right.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Sure. Okay. Am I leading us off?
Sure.
Go for it.
This is a wild year. I do not think that there is a clear-cut best team. I will say I think your Phillies are probably the favorite. I would say they are the best team across the league going to the playoffs across both leagues. I do not think that there is a clear-cut favorite. However, the last couple of years when there has been a clear-cut favorite, like I think I picked the Braves to win the World Series the last few years and flamed out twice.
Had to go to the bank twice.
At the hands of your Phillies. I have coming out of the NL. Might be a bit of a surprise. I got San Diego Padres.
Okay.
That's a fair pick. I mean,
Good pitcher
Explain your
rotation.
thought.
Good pitcher rotation. Good bullpen. Tatis is really starting to come to life. Good lineup. Jackson Merrill, Machado, Jerickson Profar having a career year. And shout out former Cardinal manager Mike Schilt, who we should have never gotten rid of, but I think I think he's got those boys playing good ball at the right time. They did not. They didn't win the division. They had a chance going to Dodger Stadium this week. Basically, if they swept, they could have made it really interesting. Going to the final weekend, Dodgers win 2 of 3. Dodgers are good. I don't know if the Dodgers had the pitching over the course of October, so that's what scares me about that, because they've had so many injuries. Ooh, this pains me to say it. Out of the AL, I've got the Yankees. Just because, now I will say, it would not shock me if some of that Houston Astro devil magic came alive in October. But here's
Don't
the
speak
thing.
that into existence.
Here's the thing. The Orioles, I think, have lost too much pitching to injury.
yeah.
The Astros, I still don't, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised, but they're not my pick. And then the Central teams, just don't know if Cleveland has quite enough offense after Jose Ramirez or enough pitching. Now, if Cleveland had Shane Bieber healthy, that might be a different discussion. But they've got a nasty bullpen with Clase. But, okay, I'm going Padres, Yankees, and in a reverse of 1998, and for their recently dead owner, Peter Seidler, I've got the Padres win the World Series.
Okay.
You don't have to do it.
Little bold, maybe, but yeah, it's October. Weird things happen. And hey, look at last year's World Series. Rangers Diamondbacks, who would have picked that going in?
Not me.
Not me.
Not me.
All right, so that's
Not me.
it. I'm on record. Padres over the Yankees in the World
Padres or
Series.
Yankees? Who you got?
I mean, it may feel like a hard pick, but I'm going to go with Phillies out of the National League. I do think in years past it's been different. In the past 2 years they've been this underdog type of feel, having to play against the Braves twice in the wild card in the divisional round back to back. So this year's a lot different because the expectations were there from the beginning, and
They've lived up to it.
they've lived up to every single piece of it. Pitching's been good. I mean, the lineup's just, when they got everyone going, that lineup is just stacked from top to bottom. So I'm going to say Phillies out of the NL, and I'm going to go with the Devil Magic.
You're going with the
I'm
Astros,
gonna go
running
with
back
the
for
Devil
22
Magic.
then.
I think it's going to be a rematch of 22. I don't know why, but this team, Astros just find a way.
they win.
And every year they just find a way, even if it doesn't look like they're going to get there.
Yeah.
Every year they find a way, and I think experience matters. The Yankees, I just can't buy into it. Every year they choke it down. So.
Fair?
So who you got? Phillies?
Phillies.
Over Astros?
I have to at this point.
Yeah.
we can't lose.
No
to the
shot.
Astros.
He's picking against them.
I'll go Phillies in 6.
All right, so again, out of the NL, I agree with I think the Dodgers would be the favorite if there was more pitching. I just can't really trust their pitching to get the job done. That lineup is ridiculous, obviously.
Can we shout out Shohei real quick? 400 total bases. First time since 01. Since Bonds in 01. Nuts. Sorry, keep going.
Is he going to pitch in the postseason?
I don't. Man, that'd be crazy if he did.
know.
That
We'll
would be
see.
the saving grace. But go
We'll
ahead.
see. So I'm going with Griffin. I got the Phillies here. That lineup, 1 to 9, is very good. They got a ton of guys who could just blast a home run at any point. All it takes is a national tragedy, and we're looking at World Series MVP Castellanos.
Nick
So.
Castellanos.
I've got the Phillies, and I love the 1-2 in the pitching.
Nolan
That's
Wheeler.
really what you need in the
Well, it
playoffs.
depends what Nola you get, but you
well,
never know in the postseason what Nola.
Well,
you get.
Right,
I remember
but-
Cardinals felt the brunt of Nolan Wheeler a couple years ago at 22.
They in the postseason they've been fantastic the
Yeah.
last 2 years.
Especially Wheeler, yeah.
And out of the AL, they had a really bad September, but I'm going with Baltimore.
Fair.
That lineup 1 through 9, I think, is probably the strongest in baseball. I know a lot of them have been struggling. You were worried about the pitching, but they have a bona fide ace in Corbin Burns. We'll see how the rest pans out, but I think that lineup is just too strong. I think those guys are going to perform. Love Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. So, sorry, but I'm going with the Orioles over the
Take
Phillies.
your pick. I
I'm
like
going
being
with the
underdog
Orioles
again.
over the Phillies. It's probably a bad pick because they've been horrible in September, but
Never know.
all you got to do is get hot in October.
I'm curious.
Exactly.
I'm curious how they performed this year because they took their lumps big time last year because they were the 1 seed in the AL last year. They got swept out of here by the Rangers. So, I do think there is something to be said about losing at least one before you win one. So, curious to see how they respond to that. But I don't think it's a bad pick. Brother, it is a weird month of sports. Anything can happen. It is very random is probably the wrong word, but there are a lot of different directions this thing can go. So and we still don't know the full playoff picture, especially the NL. I think all the AL playoff spots are now locked up.
Yes.
Shout out to the Detroit Tigers, man. What a run they've been on the last 5 weeks. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Cardinals at 11. I don't know if they're going to go all the way, but just in terms of pulling something out the bag at the last minute, because they've been so good. And the Royals too, man, because I mean they've been a fun young team all year, back in the playoffs for the first time since 2015, I think. It's been a while.
It's fun to see all the offseason moves they made really pay off.
Yeah.
They signed a bunch of guys where you're like, well, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you sign a bunch of pretty good guys,
they went for it.
Pretty
I
good
agree.
team all of a sudden. So
It's amazing how that works.
they didn't make any big splashes, but they kind of all panned out.
Last baseball note, for all you Cardinal fans out there, if you have a subscription to The Athletic, did you read this article?
I don't think so.
From Katie Wu. Basically a deep
I meant
dive.
to read that.
Basically a deep dive into everything that's gone wrong with player development and how they ended up at this point. I know there are a lot of Cardinal fans out there. Worth the read. Check that out because it ain't pretty, but it's good to read.
We're gonna hit on that either next week or the week after. Just what that team does next. We
autopsy.
got to talk about it.
The autopsy, because there's an
We'll
autopsy.
save that for another week, but it's not looking good.
All right, hopefully we don't need an autopsy for the Memphis Tigers college football playoff hopes, but they definitely took a pretty big hit last week on the road at Navy. First loss of the season in the conference opener, 56-44 in a game where the Memphis defense just had nothing for the new look Navy triple option offense.
Dude, I love the new look Navy offense.
Man, they were throwing that thing over the yard. Yeah. And, listen, here's the thing. Here's what I said. I just kind of look at this thing big picture. I do think the FSU win probably gave Memphis one mulligan in conference play. It is not ideal to use up that one mulligan in the conference opener, but on the same time, we tend to forget that recency bias when it comes to that college football playoff discussion plays a big part in that.
It does.
And these committee members remember what they've seen more recently. So in a weird way, even if Navy doesn't turn out to be better than a UTSA or a Tulane, who Memphis plays both of them in November, in a weird way, it's probably better to get that loss. If you're going to have a loss, get it out of the way now. And then you got to run the table from here, though. You have to run the table from here to even give yourself somewhat of a chance. So it was tough, but I don't think it's over yet.
No, I mean, I don't think it is either, and especially when it comes to Navy. You look at both Navy and Army this year. Both teams got something going. Both service academies are playing very, very good football. So there's a world in which that loss at the end of the year doesn't look as bad as I think Tiger fans think it does right now. Right now, you're thinking to yourself, we just lost to Navy. Navy is a 7-5 team every year who's not going to be good. There's a good chance Navy finishes the year 8-4, 9-3.
I was gonna say
crazy.
I was gonna say, I mean, with the way they looked last week, is it crazy to say that maybe they could put themselves on the outskirts of this conversation?
I mean, they get to the conference title, anything could happen.
I don't think it's out of the question.
No.
Because I'm telling you, man, that offense looked really good last week. I mean, I've watched Memphis Navy for 3 years now, and last year it came down to the wire here at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, but Navy had no sort of pass game like they did last week. And 2 years ago, Memphis blew them out in Annapolis. So
now, if you're Memphis, you are you got your eyes everywhere else. You got your eyes watching Boise State every week. You got your eyes watching Toledo every week now. NIU, I think, has played themselves out of the group of 5.
UNLV.
UNLV, that's a train wreck there. I think you don't even have to look at that. That'll take care of itself now. But I think those are the 3 big teams off the top of the head: Toledo, Boise State, Memphis.
I think more important than looking elsewhere is looking inward and fixing that defense.
Yeah, you got to win. Yeah, I guess you got to win first.
That defense.
Yeah.
From the first few weeks, they looked all right. That last week was
bad.
A completely different story.
I did ask Ryan Silverfield at his press conference on Monday just if it's easier for the defense to move forward and flush that and be confident the rest of the way, just because they look so good the first 3 weeks. I know the competition wasn't fantastic, but Troy's not a nothing, and Florida State is Florida State, even in a down year, and even as trash as we think DJU might be.
They do have a win now.
Yeah, they're on the board after beating Cal.
Conference rival,
14-9.
the Cal Bears.
But, Navy is just so different than anything you're going to see the rest of the year. And I don't know, to be honest, like Jordan Hankins, defense coordinator, who we all sung his praises for 3 weeks, and he's got some flack after last week. But he said in his press conference he didn't have them prepared. To be honest, I don't know how you prepare for that, especially when they look as different and as evolved as they did last week compared to past year. You could run all the scout team you want. That's different, man.
I mean, it's definitely hard to prepare for. I do think it is wild that you give up 500 yards of offense. Like, I get it's hard to prepare for, but at the same time, like, you have better guys.
Yeah.
You have better players than them.
Blake Horvath looking like a young Josh Allen out there. I will say, any of you that are criticizing the Tiger offense, I saw a lot of people giving Seth Hennigan flack for throwing the game-sealing interception on the drive.
Onside kick.
Yeah. Shout out Memphis, because I mean, when Horvath ripped off that 90-yard touchdown with like 8 minutes left, I thought they were done because they were down 19 at that time, and that's a steep hill to climb, but they almost did. Also, the Kobe Drake 2-point conversion, I tweeted it. Some people disagree with me. I don't care. That's a catch. Like, we're losing the plot with what's a catch and what's not. That little bobble while his arms are still on the ball, to me, does not justify it. That's not a catch. But again, if you're blaming Hennigan or the offense, man, pump the brakes. They put up over 600 yards. I'm not saying Hennigan was perfect, but they are not the reason they lost that game.
And they'll have a big bounce back this week. MTSU is not anything to write home about.
Yeah.
So.
But do we have a line on that game? I don't know. But they host Middle Tennessee State tomorrow.
Yeah. So if you want to look at the schedule for this week.
Here we go. Okay.
Middle Tennessee. How'd that get on the graphic? I don't know how that got there.
Why are we skipping that last one?
I'm not sure how that got there. So we got Middle Tennessee.
We got hacked.
So what are we thinking about Kentucky and Ole Miss, Griffin?
Hey, I'll be there for that one. I'm sure. I think it's going to be raining tomorrow.
It's going to be interesting because obviously we have not played a team like Kentucky. We played Wake Forest, and Wake Forest is obviously better than Furman and Georgia Southern and Middle Tennessee. But Wake Forest looks like they're going to be one of the worst teams in the ACC, which is already a not great conference. So Kentucky's definitely going to be a test. Kentucky defensively is much, much better than anyone Ole Miss has played throughout this season. They shut down that Georgia offense. Very, very impressive. But they cannot move the ball at all. And the Ole Miss defense is much improved this year. Quiet MVP has been Chris Paul Jr., transfer from the Hogs over in Arkansas. He has been a beast throughout the season. Defensively, I think is where you're going to really see this game play out. Can Kentucky slow down this high-octane, high-pace offense? And what defense do we get from Ole Miss? What team do we get? Because you don't know. That's the thing. You're 5 weeks in, and you have no clue what this team's actually going to look like when they play a competent opponent.
I think the big question is, can Kentucky score enough to make it close? Because their offense did shut down Georgia. They couldn't score.
Yeah,
it looked like a typical Georgia. It looked like a typical Georgia game when Kentucky had the ball, and it did not look like a typical Georgia game on the other side.
Week of rest, so
they had a week to prepare.
They're going to be juiced up for it. So we'll see if Ole Miss comes out hot. I think they will. I think the Rebs will come out. Lines at, I believe, 17. I see that being a maybe close game in the first half, and then pull away in the second half.
I do think it's good for Ole Miss. Listen, we talked about the cupcake schedule. It is what it is. This early season schedule, it's not the toughest competition in the world, but it is what it is. I do think it is good for them that instead of jumping in to SEC play against the likes of Bama, Georgia, LSU, who they get next week, Texas, Oklahoma, whoever, Tennessee, ease in with Kentucky and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, they ease in a little bit. They got Kentucky, and then they actually have to go to Carolina, which I think could be a tricky spot.
Why did I say LSU? You're right. They do go to South Carolina next week.
after that. But the South Carolina one, we'll visit that next week. But that's going to be a tricky spot right there because that place, when they played LSU a couple weeks ago, looked crazy. But Arkansas A&M and Jerry World.
Hey, that was big last week for the Hogs, to win over Auburn in the Hugh Freeze just backing up the bus.
So last week we talked about the loser of that game might turn into a downward spiral. It's kind of looking that way.
Boy, it was spiraling by halftime.
Good news for the Hogs. They weren't the loser of that game. Yeah. And I'm going to stand on business a little here, even though we're not standing on business. I think Texas A&M should not be ranked. I don't think they're a great team.
Hear me out. A&M.
Go for it.
Last week played a backup quarterback. Wegman couldn't go.
Yep.
I'm not sure who they're starting this week, but that dude should play. The dude who played against Florida, the dude who played before that. I mean, he has brought a juice to their offense that Wegman simply did not have against Notre Dame and the other early games. They did struggle last week with, I believe it was Bowling Green. It was a little testy there for a minute. But, yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. I mean,
I think Arkansas can win.
if Arkansas wins,
I think Arkansas
they go to 5-1.
I think Arkansas's got a good chance of seriously taking this game.
It depends on what version of Taylor Green they get, but like I've talked about
Right.
before, I'm a big fan of his physical skill set. I mean, he is electric to watch. It depends on what version of him you
He's
get.
just got to limit the mistakes.
I mean, don't look
and if
now.
he does,
We were calling for everyone was calling for Sam Pittman's job early in the year, and he's going to play himself, possibly if they win this week, to 2-0 in SEC play, and 1 loss in overtime to a top 20 team.
this could be a huge swing for that program.
Yeah. I think by the end of the year, they'll have 5 wins if they win this game.
I believe so, 4 or 5.
4 or 5. I mean, maybe they play themselves on the fringe of bowl contention. I think we looked at their schedule. Their schedule is pretty rough.
The back end,
it does
end's
get
brutal.
brutal.
As most SEC schedules are. But I think a lot of people had this Arkansas season written for disaster class, and it doesn't look disaster class so far.
No.
Speaking of disaster class,
Let's talk about your
go to that?
Bulldogs, baby.
Okay, I jokingly put skip this one on the graphic, but in all
probably can.
seriousness, you can skip this one.
I do know the
unless
line.
you're a Texas fan.
I do know the line for this one. You were shocked by this, and I texted our former colleague Parker King, who's also a Mississippi State grad. Do you know the line on this?
I'm going to guess, 38?
Yeah, it was 30. It might have moved. That was nice. Good call. It might have moved. When I looked on Tuesday, it was 38 on DraftKings.
So the storyline this week is a new quarterback. Shapen's out for the season. We've got number 0, Martin Van Buren Jr.
Michael.
Is it?
Michael Van Buren. Yeah, you was named off a president, and then
No,
added
I
junior.
thought it was Martin.
No, it's not Martin.
Okay.
Martin Van Buren was a president, though. I think he's like the 6th or 7th president.
Number 0, which doesn't look good on a quarterback.
Not a fan, but
But-
he's a true freshman.
4-star recruit.
Can't be worse.
We'll see.
Go get
We'll
him,
see what
kid. First
happens.
start is in Austin.
Here you go.
The best team
There
in the
you go.
country. Have fun.
Yeah.
Tennessee's on
We've
bye.
been singing the Vols praises all year. They're on a bye.
They looked good last
Another
week.
big win last week.
I question Oklahoma and how good they are. I think Oklahoma was maybe a
Sure.
touch fraudulent.
Sure, but Tennessee's defense showed up in a way that they
Yeah.
haven't this year and really made up for a lackluster offensive performance. So now we're looking at how good their offense is. Now it looks like they have a defense.
They have a defense, which has been their Achilles heel.
The
for
Vols
the
are
last
looking real good.
Oh, no,
3 years of the Heupel era.
I'm calling Tennessee as a national championship contender. They have to be in that tier now.
I was in on them about 2 weeks ago.
Hannah likes that. Yeah, they're absolutely a national championship contender. We'll see on.
I'm in on them too.
I think is Ole Miss still ranked higher in Tennessee? I believe they
No.
are. No, it's Tennessee.
jumped
7
them.
and 6,
5 and 6.
5 and 6.
5 and 6. Okay. Yeah, I still think Ole Miss is probably in that tier too, but we got to see them play competition to the level Tennessee has. Although I will say we were singing Tennessee's praises for that beatdown of NC State in Charlotte a couple weeks ago. NC State might not be good
They don't
either.
look great.
They're bad.
Because
don't
they
look
got blown
great.
out by someone else recently as well. So, yeah, tough for them. All right, let's talk some NFL. We have Week 4 underway last night. Listen, man, so the Cowboys beat the Giants. Cowboys moved to 2-2. Giants dropped to 1-3. Listen, I'll just say it. I've been singing his praises for like a year now. I'm a Jets fan. I'm very much a Giants hater. I would never buy a Giants jersey, but man, if I was going to buy a Giants jersey, it would be Malik Neighbors because he is that guy. Also left the game late with a concussion.
The Giants are going to kill him. Because, I mean,
His target share is outrageous.
I mean, the way they play him, they were running him in the backfield, kind of like Debo does, and he's not built like that. Like, he's not built like Debo to take all those hits. So
I keep thinking about our Who's Cooked segment, the famous Who's Cooked segment. You said to fix Daniel Jones, just feed Malik Neighbors the ball 15 to 20
There's the
times a game.
solution.
And they have.
Yeah.
So maybe Daniel Jones
Don's
watches
looked
the
okay
show.
the last couple weeks.
yeah, Dons hasn't been bad.
His deep ball accuracy has been
Malik
atrocious.
Neighbors is a dog, so that's really all that.
I
they
love,
need.
it's kind of like, I think I talked about after Week 1, they basically lined Neighbors up outside most of the time and didn't move him around the alignment, didn't find creative ways to get him touches. Now they're doing all that. Now, especially because he played a lot of slot in college, and slot is an easy way to manufacture some touches on some slants, some shallow crosses, things like that. Get some free releases off the line of scrimmage. The alignment and how they've been using him the last couple weeks has been awesome. So, yeah, he got a concussion at the end of the game last night. Took to Instagram to update the people, said, all good. Thanks for the prayers. So they've got the mini bye, 10 days until they play Seattle. So hopefully he's all right. But, yeah, man, he's been the big 3 wide receivers in this draft class. Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr. had a terrible week 1, but he's been awesome since then. And Robotunze had a breakout week 3, and he's playing on a sprained MCL. So all 3 of those guys look as good as advertised right now. So
as good as advertised.
your Green Bay Packers, man.
So to preface this, I had 3 quarterbacks this last week who I wanted to talk about who had incredible games. Starters, Malik Willis. So last week, we talked about Malik Willis and how LaFleur's offensive plan really catered to him. I think this week, Malik Willis was just balling. He was slinging the ball. He was running all over the Titans defense. I was there in the stands. It was hot, but it was totally worth it to see Malik Willis. Revenge game. We got another kind of Will Levis meme out of it. Probably the worst of the 3. The worst of the 3, but he kept making mistakes that Malik Willis was not making. He looked genuinely awesome this week.
Yeah.
I think so. Let's hit on Will Levis real quick. Then we'll circle back to a bigger point. Mm-hmm. You were in the stands, and you saw what. I'm not going to say I'm a Will Levis apologist. I'm just saying you have to give him a full season because the good is really tantalizing. Like, he makes some throws that you're like, whoa. If he could just cut out the recklessness and the stupid turnovers and staring down corners like he did Jair Alexander on the pick 6, he could be good. But that's easier said than done.
He did have a really nice throw to Hopkins that I think went for a touchdown.
Yeah.
But my takeaway was they had 2 touchdown drives in that game, and Malik Willis was he looked confident in those 2 drives. He was leading the offense. He looked great. One was right at the start of the game. It was like, oh, where's this coming from? And then everything else except those 2 touchdown drives, he looked terrible. The pressure was coming at him, and he just panicked. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, you said Malik Willis at first. Okay, Will Levis.
My bad. Will Levis.
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
Will Levis.
Getting too excited.
Yeah. So if he could get some consistency off of those 2 drives, which he looked really good on, he just looked bad the rest of the game, and the pressure was getting to him. The Packers were pressuring him a lot. He got sacked 8 times.
Let me just say, too, Brian Callahan said after the game, he reinforced that Will Levis is going to be their starter moving forward.
Heard that once before.
But here's the bigger point. He's got to be your starter the rest of the season. The whole point of bringing in Brian Callahan and bringing in all these Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Tyler Boyd, even if Tyler Boyd's not as good as he used to be. But still, the point is, you have good offensive playmakers. You brought in an offensive-minded head coach. The whole point of this season, to me, is to evaluate Will Levis and figure out, is this your guy or not? So benching him, what are you going to bench him for? Mason Rudolph? Like, to me, I get it. The Titans on paper this year, you say, if Levis explodes, they can win now and maybe be a playoff team. Guess what, man? You're 0-3. Like we talked about last week. Once you go to 0-3, your playoff chances are probably shot. The rest of this year at least needs to be figuring out if Will Levis is the guy or not. There is no point in playing Mason Rudolph. We know what he is. And to be honest, I think the Titans probably need to, unless Will Levis goes down a track like Zach Wilson in New York the rest of the season, which, as someone who watched basically all of Zach Wilson's games as a Jet, Will Levis might not be great right now. I promise you he's not that bad. Promise you he's not anywhere close to that bad. But unless he goes down that path and he needs some sort of reset at some point to get his confidence back or something like that, you play him the rest of this year, and I think you play him the rest of next year too, and then after next year is probably the pivot point. But there's too much talent, and you have invested too much at this point to say, oh, we're going to bench this guy after a bad first month of the season. You have to figure out what you have and if he's your guy for the next 5, 10 years or longer. So on the flip point, though, I do want to say one more thing just on that game. If you told me Matt LaFleur, if you had Matt LaFleur as the 4th best coach in the NFL right now, I would not argue. My big 3 is Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. But Matt LaFleur, I've been singing his again, I covered him for a couple seasons. I've been singing his praises for a while. He did not get enough credit because his quarterback was Aaron Rodgers, and obviously Aaron Rodgers is what he is and can elevate a lot of coaches. But Aaron Rodgers getting back to that MVP level was in large part because of Matt LaFleur. We've seen what Matt LaFleur has done now with Jordan Love and what he's doing with Malik Willis while Jordan Love's been hurt the last couple weeks. I mean, he is one of the absolute best in the game.
Real quick, the line on Malik Willis, 13 of 19, 202 yards, a 93 QBR. Will Levis, 15.8 QBR.
I don't know if you guys saw Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, he was on, I think, the Rich Eisen show this morning, and he had a really great line, which I think is awesome, and it fits their situation, what they're doing with Sam Darnold in Minnesota right now. He said, organizations fail young quarterbacks much more than young quarterbacks fail organizations. I think Malik Willis is proof of that. I think Sam Darnold, what he's doing in Minnesota right now, is proof of that. So, yeah, it's awesome to see.
I think the next guy you got on your list may have a say in that as well.
Yeah, you're right.
You want to hear this line? Andy Dalton against the Raiders
The
this
Red
week.
Rifle.
26 of 37, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks.
He didn't fail his organization.
He was
That's a lot.
as of Sunday, he was the first quarterback in the NFL this season to throw for more than 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then Joe Burrow did it on Monday Night Football. Allen threw 4 touchdowns. I don't know if Allen threw for 300 yards, but I know Burrow did on Monday night. But listen, this is what I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I said Canales is a good offensive mind. I've seen Dave Canales work with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield really well the last couple years. I'm not saying Carolina has the greatest group of weapons in the league, but I think Deontay Johnson is pretty underrated. He had a career high in receiving yards on Sunday. He was awesome. Adam Thielen, salute. He gave up his hamstring on a touchdown catch. Who else? We got Chuba Hubbard, had a really big game out of the backfield. So, yeah, I'm not saying that Andy Dalton is taking this Carolina Panthers team to the playoffs.
No.
But it pretty clearly shows that the common denominator of what was going wrong there was Bryce Young.
That was the first thing I said when I heard that Bryce Young was being benched. I said, what happens now if Andy Dalton comes out and he looks really good? And he did.
Yeah, he did look really good. And I think if you're the Panthers, you got a real decision to make now because there are teams calling, seeing what the availability is of Bryce Young. I think I don't know what you do with him. I really don't. If you're the Panthers,
I think at this point his trade value is so low. There's almost no point.
It's not going to get. Is it going to get higher?
Maybe in the offseason when a team gets desperate, I think would be the only thing. Yeah, and the thing is, a couple of people have thrown out ideas of where Bryce Young could work. The most popular one was Miami. That is obviously contingent on because you're not. I mean, maybe you get him in the building, but if Tua, you could say what you want about Tua as quarterback, but Tua has operated that offense at a high level. Bryce Young could probably operate that offense because Mike McDaniel's really good, but at that level, I don't know.
But last week did show that you can't just plug in any quarterback into that offense because
that brother Skylar Thompson was struggling. Yeah, Skylar Thompson and
they got Tim Boyle reps.
There's
not a good sign.
So you know things are bad.
I hope Tua gets healthy, but as an admitted Dolphins hater, as an AFC East fan and the Jets, I heard a lot of flack from, I went to school in Tampa. I went to school with a lot of Dolphins fans. I heard a lot last season when we played the Dolphins on Black Friday and Tim Boyle did Tim Boyle things and just looked awful. So I'm happy they get the Tim Boyle experience this year. They could really enjoy that.
2-3 people at this desk have had the Tim Boyle experience.
It ain't fun. Wait, your boys?
No.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Packers. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, I covered him there, and you would think that Boyle was the next great thing, which is why you don't believe everything when teammates are hyping up other teammates because Boyle went to Detroit even before he went to the Jets, and he was bad there too.
So the last quarterback I wanted to talk about. Look at this graphic. Just look at this graphic. What in the world? So Jaden Daniels has 3 starts where he led his team on a scoring drive.
Every drive except for kneel downs.
3 starts, 2 have been with that criteria. These 4 gentlemen who have had all right careers.
Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning. Yeah,
combined.
Not bad.
In 1,094 starts. So that is from NFL and CBS. Shout out to them.
I liked
Jaden Daniels this week, 21 of 23. Outrageous. 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 39 yards on the ground with a touchdown.
What I loved is, and I owe Cliff Kingsbury a halfway apology because I still need to see him more, but I think I said after week 1, way too many screens, way too many just Mickey Mouse short routes for a guy that was, other than his legs coming out of college, his best trait was his ability to throw the deep ball. Let him sling that thing downfield. And on Monday night, he did. He had the beautiful deep ball to Terry McLaurin in the first half, and then obviously the touchdown to Terry McLaurin as he's just getting his clock cleaned out. Just heaves it to the perfect spot in the end zone. And when you look at kind of the overhead view of where Terry McLaurin was when Jaden Daniels let that ball go. Ridiculous throw.
Yeah.
Dare I say that throw a little Favre-esque?
Maybe. Yeah.
Someone posted a side-by-side of him making that exact same throw last year at LSU against Mississippi State. Like, dude in his face gets rocked, drops it right in the breadbasket, back corner of the end zone.
That
He's
was awesome.
He's going to be a problem. If they get,
incredible.
again, it's going to be an interesting situation. You were talking about organizations failing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That's an organization that has failed quarterbacks.
A lot of them.
Over and over and over. And a quarterback very similar to Jaden Daniels not too long ago was failed by that organization.
RG3.
Exactly. So, going to be really interesting. They have new leadership. There's new guys up front there, new coach, new everything. They've cleaned house. So, going to be really interesting what the Commanders do. You look at that NFC East. It's open.
I think they're a legit
Eagles
playoff
have not.
contender.
I'm an Eagles fan. The Eagles have not been pretty by any means of the word whatsoever. Dallas has been very vulnerable.
Yep.
Giants are the Giants. They're not going to be great. It doesn't look like so.
I think Washington's a legit.
Washington can make some noise. I think.
I like Jaden Daniels a lot coming out of college. I think I told you guys. I remember watching Jaden Daniels in 2022 at LSU, thinking this guy's pretty good. And then started last season, starts tearing it up. I'm like, where is this guy on QB big boards? He was like QB9 at the start of the season. Fast forward 7 months, and he's QB2 in the draft. And I've been a big fan of him, even as big of a fan of him as I was coming out of the draft. I've been incredibly impressed. You watch him on Monday night, he is so poised and composed in the pocket, no matter what. Throwing on the move, using his legs when he has to. I think he's starting to get the memo when it comes to sliding because he's a little bit of a thinner frame, probably can't take too many hits, but I think they got one. I will also say, if you're on the internet arguing about whether the Bears should have taken him number 1 overall instead of Caleb Williams, touch grass. They are 3 weeks into their careers. Let it play out. I think they're both going to be studs. I think Caleb has shown a lot of growth so far. But Jaden Daniels, I think, is certifiably that dude.
Dang, means I got to go touch grass.
Are you on the internet arguing?
All right, you guys want to hit trivia so we can get out of here around 3?
Let's do it.
All right. Our trivia this week is name some dudes. So we've got, so first question, Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani obviously having historic seasons. They've both got over 50 home runs, 125 RBIs. Judge almost has 150. Can you name the other 6 players with at least 35 home runs and 100 RBIs?
Okay. Jose Ramirez.
Yes.
Okay.
He's going to do a lot better than me.
Brent Rooker.
Correct.
There we go.
Shout out Germantown.
He was the inspiration for this question.
Juan Soto.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm going to let him take it.
Witt.
One of your guys is on here.
Bobby Witt.
No.
Kyle Schwarber.
Yes.
Okay. So that's at 4.
That's 4.
Okay.
2 more.
2 more. Let's go. Gunnar Henderson.
No.
Okay.
It's actually a surprise.
Mookie doesn't have 35. Hold on. I'll get it. Okay, so we've got
No guesses, Griff?
I don't
No
know who's
rifle
hurt
one
this
out?
year. I got no idea.
Jordan? No, he doesn't
No.
have 35, does he? Can you give me leagues?
1 NL, 1 AL.
1 NL, 1 AL. Lindor?
One, no, not Lindor.
Can you give me a division in each?
Both East.
Both East. Does Bryce have 35? Hold on. Is it Alonso? It's not
Not the
Alonso.
polar bear?
It's not.
Austin Riley play enough this year?
No, he has played. Austin didn't really have a great year either before he got hurt. Man, this is tough actually. Oh, Ozuna.
Ozuna from the Braves.
Ozuna from the Braves. And then one more AL East guy would be Vladdy.
Nope.
Not Vladdy.
It is Santander from the Orioles.
Oh, duh, he's got 44. Yeah, he's had
Yeah.
a monster year. Yeah, I forgot about him. Cool, good trivia question.
So that one was a shout out to Brent Rooker and the A's. Another shout out to the A's. So the A's have played in Oakland from 1968 to 2024. Can you name the 5 players who have played in the most games for that franchise during that time?
This will be tough.
And I'll save you some time. You're probably only going to get 4 of them.
Okay.
The
'cause
most-
one of them's going to be a dude we never heard of.
Reggie Jackson.
Reggie Jackson's on there.
Okay.
He's number
A
5.
Lifetime A.
Just thinking of guys who played for the A's a long time.
Dennis Eckersley.
Not Eckersley.
Raleigh Fingers.
Not Rob.
Okay.
And will be the show legend.
This is games played, so probably no pitchers. on
Okay.
there.
All right.
Canseco.
No, Canseco was pretty close,
Okay.
but he's not in top 5.
Big Mac. Guire.
Yes,
Okay.
McGuire is number 3.
Guire's number 3. Okay, because he played there, I think, like 12 or 13 years. Man. Okay. Are these all? Did any of them play there in the 2000s? Let me ask that.
Yes.
Okay. Eric Chavez.
Correct.
Okay.
Number 4.
Okay.
You're missing number 1 and 2.
Yeah. That's
2
tough.
is the guy you're not going to get.
1. So you're saying I have a chance at 1?
Oh, you should have already got him. Yeah.
Oh, Ricky Henderson.
Correct.
Oh my God.
Number 2.
Look at there.
Number 2, 4-time All-Star from the 60s and 70s, Sal Bando.
I feel like I've heard the name
Shout out
before.
Sal Bando.
But yeah,
How
I would
did we
not
forget
guess
that?
that.
All right, so this Derrick Rose question,
Okay.
inspired question. So Derrick Rose obviously won MVP in 2011. He was 7th in points per game that year. Can you name the other 9 players in the top 10?
Okay. LeBron James,
LeBron.
Carmelo
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes, 2 and 3.
Kevin Durant.
That's 1.
Okay. During his MVP season, Kobe Bryant,
Yeah.
That's 4.
Dirk.
Dirk's 10.
Okay.
All right. Wow. He's cooking.
There are 2 names on this list that I love, but the 3 that you have left are the toughest.
Okay. Oh, so wait, hold on.
Get in your bag for these 3.
So wait, hold on. I've got 7 already.
Well, including Derrick Rose.
Including
yeah.
Derrick Rose.
Okay. Brandon Roy,
No,
That would have been a good pull.
Blake Griffin.
not Blake.
Let's see.
Get in the bag for this one.
Get in the Joe Johnson.
Get in the bag, not Joe Johnson.
Paul Pierce.
Not Paul Pierce. You
Uh,
got 1 big man and 2 shooters.
2011.
was Amari? No, it was
Amari.
Amari.
Amari
My
was
man.
number 6.
The Knicks are back.
Amari was
okay.
number 6.
I did 2 shooters. You said
Yeah, both sicko names.
this isn't Michael Redd, is it?
Not Michael Redd.
Okay. Do you give conferences?
I believe they were both in the West this year.
Both in the West. Okay. Shooters from the West. Kevin Martin.
Boom.
That's a good
Number
pull.
9.
Wow,
Kevin
okay.
Martin.
2K
23
legend.
and a half a game.
Yeah, I remember he had like one really big
23
year.
and a half.
One more name. He averaged 24.1.
So like to all the ladies out there that say that like guys just sit around and like name random athletes, like this is proof that we do exactly that sometimes. Okay.
The West averaging almost 25 a game in 2011.
Shooters.
He was a bucket.
Deron Williams? No.
No.
Oh. Was I'm a bucket? Was that a context clue?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just saying he was a bucket.
Okay.
He got buckets.
No one in the Wolves at that time. Sorry. Okay. I'm done. Go ahead.
Monte Ellis.
Ooh,
Monte
true.
Ellis, 24 a
Okay.
game. All right.
Okay.
Last one. Can you name the top 5 running backs averaging, or just the 5, averaging at least 5 yards a carry this season? Had to have started all 3 games.
Okay.
Saquon.
Saquon is on there.
Bucky Irving.
No.
That was a wild guess.
Not
for
a
number
starter.
2.
Not. Oh, it has a start. It has a start. No, he's been really efficient though. Jordan Mason.
No. I think he was close.
Brees.
Nope.
Running back. Kamara.
No.
Pacheco got hurt, so he did not up for 3.
I don't think Bijan's averaging that many.
There's a couple old guys on here.
Derrick Henry.
The source of this, Derrick Henry's averaging 5.
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones averaging 5.4.
Okay, so we got
A couple
3.
of 30-year-old running backs getting it done.
Okay, so we got 3.
2 left.
2 left. Okay.
30-year-old running backs.
AFC, one NFC.
Is the Jonathan Taylor?
Correct.
Okay. And the
You
NFC
got this?
I got Saquon.
is
You did
the
get
NFC Josh Jacobs? No, because he had
No,
one big
he was-
game. He's been trash. Yeah, sorry, bad call on my part. Has to have started all 3 games. It's not Jordan Mason. Kyron Williams.
He came up earlier in our conversation.
He came up earlier in our conversation in the NFC.
James Conner.
When did we talk about James Conner?
I don't know. I wasn't in your. Oh, this conversation. I
Not,
think you were still in the conversation.
not Brian Robinson.
NFC.
Evan
NFC.
Singletary.
No, he had like 14 for like 24 last night.
I only said 3, so I thought it was the week before.
Hold on. Oh, Chuba Hubbard?
Bang.
Oh,
There you go.
All right. Cool. That was fun.
That's
That
it.
was a good couple
Yeah.
questions. I like that. That was tough.
All right.
All right, so we got to get out of here because I think the 3:30 crew is getting ready to take over the digital desk. So this is fun, fellas. We will do this every Friday. We will be back next Friday. Once again, keep an eye out. We'll be out there. I'll be out there soaking. He'll be out there soaking with me for Friday Football Fever tonight. We have a preview coming up at 6, and then full thing with all the highlights coming up tonight on Action News 5 at 10. Like I said, we'll be back next week. But until then, that is Jacob Gallant and Griffin Demaray. I am Matt Infield. We are out of here. See you later.
You guys are gonna